Ethan Buchman is the co-founder of Cosmos, an ecosystem of interoperable blockchains which includes Terra, Osmosis, and Crypto.org. It has the most value locked after Ethereum. It's a complex network with many moving parts, and in the past year, it's exploded with activity. How does it all work, and what was Ethan's background before coming into the space?
Yes, as far as my background goes, growing up, I was always interested in sort of the big questions of life, why we're here, how do we get here, what are we doing here, and, what should we do about any of that. And so through investigating that, studying, neuroscience and religion and history and ultimately the origin of life, I sort of became infatuated with the problem of sustainability and what it means to be a sustainable organism in a universe that's always trying to tear you down, right? We have like the second law of thermodynamics, entropy is always increasing, everything moves towards disorder. If you spend any time in this ecosystem, you see how rapidly disorder emerges. And so I was really fascinated by that problem and how it is that living systems emerge and maintain themselves, and how we might apply that kind of understanding to our socioeconomic systems and our society and our civilization. Is civilization even something that can be sustainable? And so that was the sort of problem that was occupying a lot of my thought in school. I figured I would go on to be a professor and just sort of dwell in these problems and in this kind of theoretical mindset forever. And then at some point I met Vlad Zamfir, well-known in Ethereum these days. At the time, this was before we got into cryptocurrency, and we became good friends at university. And he started teaching me about the financial system and how corrupt everything is, and kind of opened my eyes to the world beyond professordom or beyond the ivory tower, I guess you could say. And I found that very depressing, and kind of realized that this desire to sort of stay in academia and just work on these problems at a theoretical level wasn't going to be sufficient. And I was kind of going to have to do something about it more practically and address these really fundamental problems of the corrupt structure of the financial system and at the heart of it, really the monetary system. And so, that together we sort of discovered Bitcoin and Ethereum and started working on these things and, really committed ourselves to, I guess, building these systems probably for the rest of our lives in order to improve the fundamental substructure of society. And at least for me, a big motivation was that it felt like the phenomenon I was studying in the biophysical world of the origin of life was kind of reoccurring in the digital world with the birth of blockchains as sort of digital organisms or something like that. And so I became really, fascinated with the problem of whether they could have a role in a more sustainable social economy. And so that's sort of what led me into the rabbit hole. And then I kind of fell down it and, haven't been able to get back out.
That's so interesting. You come into the blockchain world from a very, I guess, unusual angle of living systems and biophysics, biology and neuroscience. And I'm wondering if you can kind of dive deeper on that connection there, because, from the outside, it's kind of hard to see it.
Yeah, no, for sure. So the crux of the matter is, and sort of the climax of, I guess, my research in biophysics was this understanding that sustainable systems are systems that internally within their structure are able to have efficient and accurate representations of their environment, right? In some sense, they have to internally represent the patterns of energy flow that drive them. And they need to do that because they need to be able to respond to changes in their environment. They need to be able to capture energy, store it up internally so that they can use it and have access to it to respond and adapt and reproduce and so on. And so, there's been a lot of work over the decades kind of coming to this understanding of the, let's say, information theoretic nature of sustainability, and the relationship between an organism's ability to model its environment and its ability to sustain itself in that environment. And that's kind of intuitive, that might be sort of obvious, but there has been actual real formal work on it. And the way I see, the way I've kind of defined or described what's happening in human socioeconomic systems is that the structures and institutions we use to organize ourselves are ways to represent aspects of the environment or aspects of the social structure in some kind of internal organism, you could call it, internally in the institution. And so the history of humanity is in some sense this like evolving progressive desire to represent more of the stakeholders of society, and including the planet, within the state machine of our institutions, of our civilization, right? And I see blockchains as ways that to really kind of formalize and extend and facilitate this problem of representing stakeholders more effectively in the state machine. And so, historically, like if you look at the patterns of political economy and who was able to vote, as just like a very basic example, way to concretely talk about this, over time, we've extended the vote to more and more people. And so in a sense, the state machine of society, the rules and institutions of society have become more representative of a greater body of stakeholders in at least our, highest level democratic electoral institutions, which are, still riddled with issues. But there are many more places and aspects in society where we do a really poor job of representing stakeholders, and especially of representing the environment and sort of the ecology of the planet as a fundamental stakeholder. And so I see blockchains as a tool, as technologies for enabling us to better represent stakeholders in the state machines of civilization, and thereby through that, hopefully create a more sustainable civilizational form.
That's so interesting. And so how do you reconcile the environmental aspect of having blockchains be a more kind of representative system with obviously kind of proof of work?
Yeah, well, I think I've played a big role over the last 7-8 years of transitioning the whole blockchain ecosystem away from proof of work. I wrote my master's thesis in 2016 that was on Tendermint, and in the context of the history of consensus science and how we can use this extensive literature and advancements like Tendermint and future advances to make blockchains more efficient and more environmentally friendly. And obviously, the entire blockchain industry has kind of moved to proof of stake since, and Ethereum's planning to move. And but I still have a soft spot for Bitcoin and for its proof of work. I happen to believe that there is room for one big at least one, but probably only one proof of work chain on the planet. And I'm happy for that to be Bitcoin. And I sort of try to explain this. I have a blog post called "Orange is the New Green," where I sort of try to write about this. But I think it's important to ground the monetary system or the financial system in sort of thermodynamic processes. And Bitcoin is a way to do this. It's a very crude way to do this. And so it's not sufficient for the sustainability story. But I actually think Bitcoin has more to offer to, global sustainability than it does take away from it. And people often hyper-focus on certain aspects of the environmental impact and on, the carbon emissions and stuff like that. And there's a lot of nuance here. And I don't know how much time we want to spend sort of diving into all that. But at the end of the day, the way I put it is that the world has bigger problems right now than the energy consumption of Bitcoin, and I would rather face those problems with Bitcoin at our back than without it. So, yeah,
that's super interesting. So, do you see the future of the blockchain ecosystem as Bitcoin still being an important part of it?
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I mean, I could put it like this: I'm irresponsibly long Bitcoin, Ether, and Atom, plus a smattering of other things. But I think both Bitcoin and Ethereum will have big roles to play in the long term for the blockchain ecosystem, and Bitcoin especially as something that is. It's offering a very particular kind of guarantee, not only the thermodynamic guarantees it offers in terms of proof of work and the inability to rewrite the history, but culturally the social contract around Bitcoin is quite different from pretty much every other blockchain in the sense that it's very conservative, and a lot of people think that's that means Bitcoin's dead or it can't evolve. I don't think that's true. Bitcoin does still evolve. We saw the SegWit upgrade. We saw the Taproot upgrade. So Bitcoin does evolve. It just evolves a lot more slowly. And it's important to have at the foundation of sustainable systems very slow-moving processes that you can kind of depend on that aren't going to change under you in ways that you sort of can't expect. So I do think that's it's important for those reasons. But it's obviously also important that we have higher-level systems that can move much faster and can adapt more rapidly to sort of changes in the environment. And that's what the technology we've been building is really all about.
Nexo is a go-to platform for all things crypto. Invest in the hottest coins out there and start earning interest of up to 20% paid out daily. Need cash ASAP but don't want to sell? Use your crypto as collateral and receive a credit line at premium rates. Open your account at nexo.io till March 31st and receive up to $100 welcome bonus. That's nexo.io. Cosmos was an idea that was born and grown from as early as 2014. One of the fundamentals during this period was figuring out how to shift from proof of work to proof of stake. Ethan wanted to enable each project and community to be able to build and secure their own blockchain. It was Ethan's goal to bring about a community computer revolution, stemming from the personal computer revolution. So how did this take shape over time? And what were the gaps he saw in the Ethereum model?
So, Vlad and I were working together on Ethereum in 2014, and we're, very optimistic about it. I ended up getting a job with a company that year. We were both sort of working kind of on, in the open source community. And then I took a job with a company that was trying to bring Ethereum to enterprises. And I thought, I was excited to have my first job, honestly. But I also thought, I think you could say I have a practical bend, and I'm an idealist, but I also like to see how things can actually materialize in practice. And I thought, working with a company to try to bring this technology to real enterprises, and it was run by lawyers, and I thought that would be kind of interesting, would be really valuable. And two things sort of happened late that year. One was, we realized that obviously if we were going to bring this technology to enterprises, we were going to need we weren't going to be able to use proof of work, and we would need to sort of upgrade the consensus mechanism and use something, a bit more interesting. And proof of stake was already being sort of discussed in the ecosystem. And so there was sort of early group of people starting to work on it. And so, that got me sort of professionally like, okay, well, we're going to have to, I've been maintaining forks or playing with forks of the Go Ethereum code base since like all the way back then. So that, we were forking Go Ethereum and trying to change out the consensus and all this kind of stuff. So that was one. And then the other was, there was a night that Vlad and I, and Vlad's written about this in his like history of Casper series. There was a night where we sort of stayed up all night, talking about the future of blockchains and consensus, and kind of really convinced ourselves that proof of stake was the future, and that, work through all of these problems around the nothing at stake attack, and it was long range nothing at stake attacks, and all this like interoperability and all the kinds of things that are materializing today. We were sort of like working through all that and convincing ourselves that this was really the future. And Vlad set out to kind of do it through Ethereum and the Ethereum community and the Ethereum technology. And I sort of felt that, there was, as much as I loved the Ethereum vision, that there were kind of more practical, kind of on the ground things that needed to happen. And that sort of led me to finding Jay Kwan and Tendermint and starting to work with him to adapt old Byzantine fault tolerant solutions to the consensus problem, to this sort of modern blockchain context, and to start using it in enterprises, and to start to build an ecosystem around many blockchains rather than just trying to build one Ethereum blockchain that could sort of handle as much throughput and compute as possible. Jay and I really had a notion that there was going to be a proliferation of blockchains, many blockchains, maybe as many as cities or as companies or websites. People now say there's going to be billions of them. We'll see. And so that sort of led us, down the path towards Cosmos, and thinking about how do we enable a world where any community really can build their own blockchain and figure out how to secure it with the right level of security that's appropriate for them, not being forced to inherit like this, necessarily huge global amount of security, and still have all those chains be interoperable with one another, right? And that was really what took shape as the Cosmos vision, and what I've now started referring to as the community computer revolution. So just like we had this sort of personal computer revolution, which gave every individual a computing device, with the sort of Cosmos approach has been to bring about this community computer revolution, where we want to give every community their own sort of computing device that will kind of transform their relationship to technology and what they can do and so on. So that's at least at a high level, but we can go into more detail of any of the history if you'd like.
Yeah, super interesting concept, the personal computer versus the community computer. Very basic question. What's the difference between Cosmos and Tendermint?
That's a great question. So Tendermint is a piece of the stack. So you could think of Tendermint as like the operating system. And Cosmos is kind of everything built on top of it. That's one kind of analogy. More concretely, Tendermint is a consensus engine. It's a general purpose Byzantine fault tolerant state machine replication engine. That's how we describe it, sort of in purely technical terms. So it takes care of the low level components of running a blockchain, right? So it takes care of the consensus algorithm and the peer-to-peer networking and the mempool and all the stuff that's sort of below the blockchain application. It takes care of all of that sort of low level networking and stuff. And Tendermint is really unique because it's pretty much the only general purpose consensus engine that has actually been implemented that's out there that allows you to build applications on top of Tendermint in any programming language. So you can build an app in any language you'd like, and Tendermint will allow you to take that app and transform it from an application that runs on one computer to an application that runs on many physical computers and stays in consensus on all of that. So it's sort of a general purpose technology for running fault tolerant applications. Cosmos is sort of an extension of all of this, and it's the idea that, well, there's going to be many Tendermint blockchains out there. Because once we built Tendermint, we made it really easy for people to build, and run their own blockchains. So therefore, there's going to be many Tendermint blockchains. And so we need some concept or some project to represent this wider set of Tendermint blockchains. And more specifically, if each Tendermint blockchain you could think of as like a single logical computer, we need a way for them to connect to each other. And that's the interoperability piece that is kind of core to Cosmos. So if Tendermint was sort of this first building block that was, to enable arbitrary consensus systems and any application to inherit Byzantine fault tolerant consensus, Cosmos is this sort of, umbrella project to enable there to be many Tendermint blockchains and for them to connect to each other, right? So I guess to make an analogy to sort of the internet and history of computing, you could say that Tendermint is like the emergence of Linux or the emergence of, the personal computer, and Cosmos is about the internet and connecting all of those things together, and there being many computers and many operating systems that then are able to connect to each other and talk to each other.
Okay, so is Cosmos a technical program that apps need to run, or is it more of like a concept of, okay, Cosmos is the group of all these Tendermint chains together, or is it like an actual kind of program?
It's more like the latter. I mean, I'm guilty of, maybe propagating some confusion because Cosmos, I think, means a little bit, it means too many things, right? The way it was described in the white paper is that Cosmos is a network of blockchains. So whereas you can use Tendermint to build a single blockchain, Cosmos is how you would build many blockchains or connect those blockchains to each other. But it's really, the way I've described it is it's a philosophy of blockchain design. It's an approach to blockchains that includes a technology stack, which you could call the Cosmos stack. So there's the Cosmos philosophy, which is how do we go about building blockchains in the first place. There's the Cosmos technology stack, which are all the pieces we've developed that make it easy for you to actually build a blockchain. So there's Tendermint at the bottom of that. There's the Cosmos SDK, which allows you to actually build the cryptocurrency application. There's IBC, which is part of that technology stack. That's the inner blockchain communication protocol. And then there's a third name or third thing Cosmos means, which is the Cosmos Hub, which is one particular blockchain within the wider Cosmos network. So, there's a bit of a movement now to call maybe the Cosmos Hub Cosmos and call the network of blockchains the Interchain. But that's sort of marketing stuff that's being worked out. But it is important to differentiate those sort of three meanings, let's say, of Cosmos: the philosophy, the technology stack, and the Cosmos Hub blockchain. Because they are all sort of different, even though they work really well together, and we can talk about sort of how that is that they work well together.
Okay, yeah. So this is all very different from the way that we're used to thinking about blockchain. So it kind of it's great to break it down and clear up the meaning of these concepts. Okay, so to kind of summarize. So Tendermint is the kind of operating system that is helps run all the kind of low level stuff that makes the blockchain work. Okay, and then there's the Cosmos SDK, which is the toolkit that helps developers build applications on top of this kind of lower level Tendermint stack, right?
Yep.
And then on top of that, there's IBC, which connects all of these chains that are using Tendermint and Cosmos SDK.
That's right. Except it's not, I would say just as a caveat, IBC is technically not limited to the Cosmos SDK or to Tendermint. Oh. So there are other ways to build on top of Tendermint. You don't have to use the Cosmos SDK. and you can still use IBC if you do that. So for instance, there is a blockchain that launched recently called Nomic, and they're built on Tendermint, but they do not use the Cosmos SDK. So the Cosmos SDK is written in Go and is one way to build blockchains on Tendermint. Nomic built their application in Rust on top of Tendermint, using their own system, but they're still using IBC, and they'll be connecting in, to other blockchains. And there are others that are also building on top of Tendermint without using the Cosmos SDK. So you can use IBC kind of independently of everything else. Yeah.
Okay, but you still need to be using Tendermint to be connected in the IBC network, right? Or not?
No, IBC is even more general than that. Yep.
Okay.
So that's where we started because, we're very practically oriented. And I think there's a lot of kind of misunderstanding of really what IBC is and how it works. But IBC is really about being a general purpose interoperability protocol for different blockchains. And as long as your blockchain can fit within what we call the IBC client interface, then you can use IBC. So for instance, there is work right now to develop an IBC integration for Polkadot. And Polkadot's obviously not using Tendermint. And there's work to implement IBC on Ethereum and in Celo and with other blockchains as well. So the main sort of IBC implementation uses Tendermint, but IBC is actually a multi-layer protocol specification. And at the bottommost layer is allows you to plug and play different kinds of consensus algorithms, so long as you can build what we call a client or a light client for that consensus. And even if you can't build a client, there are ways even around it. So you could fit like a multi-sig into IBC. So you could have an IBC connection that's just controlled by a multi-sig or even a single sig. So like I can connect, I can make an application and connect that over IBC to another blockchain, and that blockchain doesn't have to know that I'm, just one person. It's sort of like in the internet of blockchains, nobody knows if you're a fridge, right? So IBC is very general purpose and extremely powerful, and we're only just starting to actually like unveil that power and have people kind of realize what is possible with it.
Unstoppable Domains is the #1 provider of NFT domains. With your unique NFT domain, such as camilla.crypto or camilla.nft, you can replace your long, complex wallet address, verify ownership of your NFT, log into Web3 apps, and join tens of thousands of people using them as their Twitter usernames. Better yet, with Unstoppable Domains, you don't have to worry about gas or renewal fees, and you own them forever. Go to unstoppabledomains.com and get yourname.crypto.x.nft or a range of other endings for as low as $5. Somebody could create an IBC compatible Ethereum client, and that would be able to connect to this network of chains. Wow. Yeah. And so if like once chains are connected with IBC, what exactly can they do? Like, what's the benefit of joining?
Yeah, so there's let's say 3 layers in the IBC protocol stack. So the bottom layer is the client, which is where you determine what kind of chain you're connecting to. The middle layer we call transport, authentication, and ordering. That's just taking care of sort of the low-level concerns of establishing a connection between 2 blockchains. And then there's the IBC application layer, where you can start to build actual applications that allow you to do cross-chain things. So the simplest application is token transfer, right? And that's the one that's live today. That allows you to transfer a token from one chain to another. And really what's happening in token transfer is you're locking up the coin on one side of the IBC connection and you're minting a voucher, let's say, on the other side, and then that voucher can flow around. And when you send it back, the voucher gets burnt and the coin gets sort of unlocked, right? It's standard kind of bridge design, but it's all been standardized. So that's token transfer. But you can build other protocols on top, other application level protocols on top of IBC. And we have 2, one that's launching very soon and another that should be launching this year. The first one is called Interchain accounts. And this basically lets you control one blockchain from an account on another blockchain. So for instance, with an account on the Cosmos Hub, I can send transactions on some other IBC connected blockchain without having to transfer over to that blockchain first, right? So this opens up all kinds of really interesting possibilities. For instance, for people to build, let's say, liquid staking is one kind of example. So you'll be able to build a blockchain that uses interchain accounts, and you can send atoms from the Cosmos Hub to that blockchain. And then using interchain accounts, that chain can stake those atoms back onto the Cosmos Hub to a validator there, but then it can do whatever it wants with sort of tokenized version of those staked atoms locally. So it really allows like a huge amount of flexibility in interchain kind of communication and applications that I don't think people have quite grokked how powerful that's going to be. So there's a lot of amazing potential there. And then the other big application that we're building right now over IBC is what we call interchain security, which is effectively a shared security model. Not too dissimilar from sort of what Polkadot offers, that will allow the validator set on one blockchain to secure another blockchain by basically passing validator set updates over IBC. So IBC is a general purpose protocol that you can build arbitrary application level protocols on top of, and that's a few of the ones we have now. But you can imagine other things sort of down the road, other kinds of distributed systems algorithms or whatever. And people are just starting to understand that this level of flexibility of IBC and starting to look at what other kinds of protocols they could be built. And for instance, the holy grail, I think, of protocols on top of IBC is to implement Tendermint itself on top of IBC, where that would basically allow you to have entire blockchains acting as validators for some other blockchain that is running Tendermint over IBC. So that's like a meta, mind exploding kind of idea that might take us a couple years to get to, but that's, ultimately, I think, one of the holy grails.
Okay, but I guess like simplifying the concept, what this allows you to do is that any blockchain connected to IBC can like users on those blockchains will be able to use their tokens and cryptocurrencies in just like more flexible ways. Like maybe they can have an account on one chain, but use those tokens to stake them or swap them on another chain. Yeah. And is this like pretty seamless, or is it like using layer twos where you sometimes need to like wait for weeks to deposit and withdraw and so on?
It's completely seamless. I mean, we are so spoiled in the Cosmos ecosystem. It's a little bit ridiculous when like the difference of experience between using IBC and Kepler, which is sort of the main wallet, versus doing anything on layer twos or other bridges is just it's just unbelievable. So the best way to experience this is get some atoms and then send them over to Osmosis, which is decentralized exchange built using the Cosmos stack, but it's its own blockchain. So that's where a lot of the IBC activity is today, because everyone's sending coins over there to put them into liquidity providers or pools, AMMs, and do trading and so on. And it's completely seamless and really beautiful user experience. So it's almost hard to believe how nice it is. Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah. So this is what's a bit confusing to me still. So you have applications that are their own blockchains, right? So like Osmosis is a DEX, but it's also a blockchain. And
it's its own blockchain, yeah.
So how does it work? Like, what are the validators of Osmosis? Like, where does its security come from?
Yeah. So it has its own token, the Osmo token, and it has its own validator set who stake Osmo. And Osmo has a price on the market, and that's what secures the chain ultimately. They actually rolled out a new feature, which is pretty cool, called superfluid staking, that allows you to actually stake your LP tokens. So if you're an LP on Osmosis, so you have tokens locked up in the AMM, you can actually stake those and contribute to the security of the chain like that. So people are already starting to explore different ways to expand the functionality of staking and add more security to their chains. But that's right. I mean, it's kind of, like 5 years ago when we were talking about Cosmos, the internet of blockchains, there's going to be all these application specific chains. They're going to bring their own security. Like everyone was like, no, that's not going to work. Security's too expensive. You can't, have every chain provide its own security. But lo and behold, that's what's happening. There's a new kind of business now, which is called a proof of stake validator. And these are companies that specialize in operating independent proof of stake blockchains, and they acquire tokens one way or another, and they stake those tokens, on that chain, and thereby secure the operations of that chain. And it means they have to keep up with it. They have to follow governance proposals. They have to, they have to vote on stuff. They have to upgrade when it's time to upgrade, and so on. So yeah, each Cosmos chain has its own validator set. And there's a lot of overlap, of course. There are a lot of validators that are on all, I don't know about all the chains, but many of the chains. For instance, our company runs a validator, Cephalopod Equipment, and we're on 6 or 7 different chains or so, right? And you have to acquire the tokens and stake them, and there's always the question about the token price and therefore the security of the chain. But that's sort of part of the model of being able to have sovereignty over your for a community to have sovereignty over its application and its infrastructure kind of requires this sort of model, and it seems to be working. And
okay, and taking Osmosis as an example, like how much is staked there? Like how much value in Osmo tokens is securing that chain?
I don't know offhand.
As an estimate, I guess.
Probably a few $100 million or something. Yeah.
Okay, but does that mean that somebody can go and with a few $100 million attack Osmosis?
Yeah, if someone had a few $100 million worth of Osmosis and they staked that all themselves, and they were able to control, let's say, if you're able to control 2/3 of the validator set, you can basically do whatever you want. So if they were able to control 2/3 of the validator set, they could steal everyone's money and kind of do whatever. And there are attacks over IBC that only require 1/3 of the validator set. And so, so that's real. But acquiring that stake requires acquiring that many Osmo, and so you'd have to go and buy them. And this is true on every proof of stake chain, right? It's not unique to Cosmos chains. There's just more of us, but it's been true on the Cosmos Hub. It'll be true on on Ethereum or on Polkadot or any other chain where if you control a significant fraction of the supply and you're able to buy up all those tokens, then you'll control the chain. But I think the other piece of this that I think people take somewhat for granted is that there is accountability. There are reputations that are at stake as well as money, and there is the sort of historical nature of actually acquiring stake. Like, it's hard to acquire a massive stake without everyone noticing, and either the price gets driven up quite significantly as that happens, and so then you have to question, why is someone spending all this money just to destroy it. And it's possible for the community to organize socially to kind of recover. There's an interesting thing happening right now around Juno, which is another Cosmos-based blockchain where they airdropped their token to atom holders. So one of the fun kind of values of holding atoms is everyone is airdropping tokens to you these days. And they set a limit. They called it the whale cap of how many Juno each address could receive. And it was discovered that there was an entity that had split up its tokens across many addresses, and the limit was supposed to be like 50,000 Juno. And this guy, and it's a known entity in Japan, ended up with like 2.5 million Juno. And so the community is like trying to figure out what to do about it, because they're like, they have too much of the token, and they could influence governance or take over the net. Now, I mean, there's I don't know what the total supply of Juno is. I think it's much more than that. So I don't know that that's a real concern yet, but the community is trying to figure out what to do about that, and that's the shape of sovereignty. You need to solve these problems for yourself and secure yourself and deal with these risks. Yeah.
This podcast is sponsored by Sirion. Sirion is mission control for Web3, giving users the ability to trade DeFi tokens, transfer assets across chains, and show off their NFT collections all in one place. Sirion offers a multi-chain experience with asset tracking and trading across 7 networks, including Polygon, Optimism, Arbitrum, and BSC. So you'll never miss an opportunity waiting on gas fees to drop. NFT owners can also see their favorite collectibles and art widgets on their iPhones or Apple Watches, and send them to friends and family in a few clicks. Users can explore every corner of the metaverse with Sirion from their web, desktop, and mobile apps. Head to Sirion.io to connect your wallet and get started today. Using the Cosmos sovereignty model gives all blockchain users an incredible amount of freedom to build their platform as they see fit. But with that comes a trade-off, as they're more susceptible to attack than a larger chain such as Bitcoin or Ethereum. So where does Ethan stand on this security issue? And what preventative measures are there?
Yeah, I mean, this is a deep political economic conundrum, right? And I don't think there is a singular solution to this. The solution to this is politics, is like good politics and citizenship and governance. And it's not something you solve by just having a single global blockchain that solves all of the world's security problems. Like, I think that's you know, a utopian dream. And as much as I respect the teams that are trying to build that, you know, I don't believe we're building purely economic systems. These aren't, you know, there's no sort of economic determinism here that's like, well, if only you acquire enough value in the token, then you can completely usurp it. I mean, first of all, I don't think proof of stake is the be all end all of the story here. I think it's a stepping stone, and we're going sort of, there's a trajectory from proof of work to proof of stake, maybe to things like proof of bandwidth, to what I ultimately call proof of care or proof of plant, which are, you know, ways to structure society around the behaviors that the community deems are valuable, right? And that's ultimately a political sort of governance project, right? People need to constitute their communities and the rules around them. And blockchains right now are experiments in doing this, right? We're exploring, we're experimenting. Proof of stake is sort of a stepping stone, but it's riddled with issues. There's all this, like, you know, these oligopolies, and if we just sort of took the current model and just applied it to the real world, and, you know, we'd have all these problems, just like you're saying. Oh, the banks would still run the world, and then what have we achieved? And so, you know, personally, for me, it's not about building global, you know, public, anonymous, fully secure blockchains to sort of rule the world. It's about empowering each community to define their own rules for how they're going to be governed, and they can create you know, capital controls or limits on who can enter, and they can have more advanced rules on who's allowed in the validator set and how that gets decided. And you have to be, you know, a defined person. And the other reality here is, like, there is such a thing as the legal system. And I know, you know, crypto anarchists and so on like to pretend that, oh, the legal system is, you know, it can all go away, or all we need from it is to enforce some, you know, vague notion of property rights. I don't believe that at all. I think that legal systems are very real institutions. They're very important institutions. They're going to need to evolve, and we're going to have to interface with them properly. And you know, I don't think it's wrong to think about the reality of the legal system as you're designing systems, because, you know, they exist. And if we're always sort of antithetical to the legal system and saying, no, we don't need that, or we're against that, well, then, you know, we're not going to have a productive discourse with regulators, with the existing institutions of society. We sort of have to build on what's already there. We can't just burn it all down and, you know, pretend we can start from scratch by building some, you know, global fully secure blockchain system. And so, you know, I think, and there's lessons in history from this too. I mean, like the, you know, utopian market fundamentalism idea that sort of emerged in the 19th century kind of did this as well. It was like, oh, we don't need, you know, any of these institutions, or they're all wrong, and we can sort of obliterate all these, like, local, you know, pockets of information and structure, and, you know, kind of dismissed sort of the structuring aspects that the previous feudalist system was providing. Not to romanticize or justify the feudalism or the feudal order, but it was providing sort of functions that the market system that replaced it kind of neglected. And so, you know, and with that has threatened potentially our sustainability as a species. And there's been massive growth over the last, let's say, 200 years, but there's also been, you know, also growth in systemic risk. And so, you know, I think we're designing blockchains as well. These are, like, fundamentally political economic systems, and we can't just be trying to build, like, a, you know, global, self-regulating, perfectly secure kind of final blockchain. It's really about enabling communities to take more control over their own lives and have more sovereignty, and sort of empower them to, you know, to do what's right for them and still be able to interoperate with everyone else. And that's really the crux of the Cosmos vision, right? It's not to provide a one-size-fits-all solution. It's to sort of, you know, continuously negotiate with the sort of political economic reality and provide tools that, you know, can help bring about this sort of more sustainable future.
Okay.
Hopefully that wasn't too abstract.
No. No, like, as I understand it,
anyway.
It makes sense. It's like, maybe having this, like, one size fits all does provide kind of just, you know, a lot of security, but at the same time, it is kind of maybe idealistic to think that this one solution will be the right one for every single use case and, like, political situation and, you know, economic framework that comes down the line. And so, like, your view or way of doing things is, okay, let's give different communities the tools to build their own chains and rule set and frameworks. And maybe, you know, they'll be able to come up with solutions to, like, the problems they face.
Exactly. But I would also say, I mean, it's just to sort of round out the point, we did go sovereignty first, but that doesn't mean that we're not also exploring ways to do things like shared security and to sort of merge sovereigns and so on. And so, for instance, this interchain security feature that we're working on for the Cosmos Hub, we are positioning the Cosmos Hub to be a service provider for the rest of this ecosystem. It's not the one chain to rule them all, but it is sort of finding a particular niche within the emerging interchain. And one of the features we are developing and should be live this year is interchain security, where new chains can launch that do leverage the security of the Cosmos Hub, right? So we just took the approach of building bottom up and starting with sovereignty first, and putting that at the forefront, not prioritizing a particular token over our values, and really focusing on, what is the most valuable thing to build at any time, right? And first it was Tendermint, and then the Cosmos SDK, and then IBC, and now we feel it's actually the time where the most valuable thing we could build is the Cosmos Hub, and a Cosmos Hub that services all these other chains and provides these other options that there's obviously demand for, like interchain security, so that chains can launch using the security of the Cosmos Hub. So, it's not that we won't have that functionality that ETH 2.0 or Polkadot are providing. It's just that we took a different way to get there, and sort of wanted to lay more solid foundations that we could build on top of, because now we can build things like interchain security on top of IBC. So we already have a standard communications protocol. It's very general purpose enough that we can build a sharding solution on top of it, right? So that was sort of the more of a bottom up approach, I would say, than sort of top down. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, and then if you can explain what Cosmos Hub is, because I understand that, so we went through kind of what Tendermint is, SDK, IBC, and then Cosmos Hub is, as I understand it, it's one more chain within the Cosmos ecosystem, right?
That's right. Yeah. So it was really like the first. Technically, another chain beat us by a month, but it was really sort of the first chain to kind of put, the Iris network, which was our sort of sister chain in China that we worked together sort of early on in the project. But the Cosmos Hub launched in early in 2019. It was sort of the first to really put all the pieces together and demonstrate, all this technology we've been working on, Tendermint, the Cosmos SDK, the staking system within the Cosmos SDK, and the governance system within there is quite advanced, and put all that together. And so for a while, it was really just like a prototype in a sense of like, here's what you can do with all of these pieces. Now go build your own chain. And of course, in the last, especially year, there's been a proliferation of Cosmos SDK or Tendermint-based chains that are using IBC, and you can look at mapofzones.com is this amazing visualization of all the Cosmos blockchains and IBC and all the traffic between them, and it's just like it's like witnessing the birth of a new internet. But the Cosmos Hub itself didn't really have its own development team historically, because the developers were all focused on the core pieces, on building Tendermint, on building the SDK, on building IBC, etc. And it's only within the last year, I would say, that we've properly put together a team around the Cosmos Hub, because initially the vision for the Cosmos Hub was like, well, let's prove that this all works, and that we can actually deliver IBC and all these things and enable this sort of sovereign interoperable reality with this proliferation of application chains. And sort of there's been a renewed impulse to set like a new vision for the Cosmos Hub 2.0. Now that we've sort of proven that all this technology works and everyone's using it, what role can the Cosmos Hub play within that emerging interchain ecosystem and this emerging internet of blockchains, essentially, right? So we've only really finally put a team together to really focus on the Cosmos Hub in the last year, and we sort of outlined three key functions. That was four. Three key functions that the Cosmos Hub aims to play, and the features that we're building on, and these are sort of the three pillars of the Cosmos Hub, you could say, and they are public goods, interchain services, and money. We put it like that. And so on the public goods front, we're building tools and functionality on the Cosmos Hub to make it really easy to sort of launch organizations, raise funds to develop projects, and use it as like a shelling point for funding the public goods within the Cosmos ecosystem, these core pieces, Tendermint, the SDK, IBC relayers, Cosmosm, things like that. There's all this technology that people are building that's very general purpose. And so the Cosmos Hub is positioning itself as a way to raise funds across all the different chains to fund these sort of common goods that everyone is benefiting from. So that's the sort of public goods piece. The interchain services piece, which is what we're focusing quite a bit on now, is on providing services to this emerging interchain. All of these blockchains are coming online. Each one is focused on some application-specific reality, whether it's a DEX or a lending platform or a smart contract platform, whatever it might be. And the Cosmos Hub is focusing on what cross-chain functionality can the Cosmos Hub provide to make it easier and sort of improve the UX for all of these other blockchains coming online and starting to connect to each other. So it will never be required to use the Cosmos Hub to sort of access IBC and connect into the internet of blockchains, because that's just, that's not our values. We're permissionless, sort of sovereignty maximalist, but we want the Cosmos Hub to be able to provide services over and above what people already get out of the software that makes it easier for them to use IBC. And so, for instance, interchain routing is sort of a big one, or chain naming registry, like things that you need in this emerging interchain. The sort of Cosmos Hub is a common place for them. And actually, maintaining the IBC infrastructure requires off-chain processes called relayers, IBC relayers, that actually take care of relaying packets back and forth. They're very expensive to operate, and so having all of these chains connecting point to point with each other is very expensive to maintain. Versus if they were all to just connect to the Cosmos Hub, it could be a lot cheaper and easier, and we could provide higher quality service and things like that. But they'd still always be able to fall over, so it wouldn't be like a central point of failure. It would just be like a sort of faster way and more efficient way to do things. And then, of course, there's interchain security, which is another sort of interchain service that will allow new chains to launch using the Cosmos Hub, using the security of the Cosmos Hub. So these are all sort of features under interchain services. And then there's the monetary function, where sort of Atom has this, because the Cosmos Hub is somewhat like Bitcoin, it's a little bit more of a conservative chain. It's not trying to evolve too rapidly or adopt the most advanced sort of experimental features right away. It's a little bit more conservative and stable, a place that, we want like institutional firms and larger, more conservative firms to be able to sort of park assets and serve as like a jumping off point, a sort of safe starting point to explore the rest of the sort of more experimental ecosystem. And with that comes this sort of, with that sort of conservative ethos comes this sort of monetary function that allows you to sort of trust atoms as a little bit more kind of stable, potentially, that could be used as collateral in the rest of the ecosystem and sort of stuff like that. So there's that sort of monetary function. And even further within that, and this is the stuff that I'm really excited about, and we'll probably be looking at using interchain security for this, is to actually start building applications that connect with the real world and that start to take care of monetary functions within the real world. And in particular, enabling things like credit clearing and mutual credit to emerge in more communities with more sort of real world businesses, not necessarily having to know that they're using, Cosmos or that, there's anything really happening sort of blockchain wise behind the scenes, but to sort of bring more services to them that allow them, to reduce their sort of liquidity costs and requirements and sort of help make small businesses more viable and sustainable. But that's a whole other topic to get into. Yeah. So in other words, Cosmos Hub 2.0 vision story, is coming together. And, Billy, who's sort of the lead for the Cosmos Hub right now, he does these Twitter spaces, I think every week. And CryptoCito has been hosting the show on the sort of Cosmos Hub. So there's lots of information out there you can start to tune in and hear about, but there isn't like a second white paper yet, but maybe it's time for that.
This podcast is sponsored by Matcha. When you shop for plane tickets, you probably use Kayak, Expedia, or Google. So why would you limit yourself to just one exchange when you trade crypto? To make sure you're getting the best possible price, you should use a DEX aggregator like Matcha. Matcha routes your orders across all the various DeFi exchanges on Ethereum, Polygon, BSC, Phantom, and Avalanche to provide the best possible prices without taking any commissions. Matcha has a fiat on-ramp so you can buy directly with your credit or debit card. It also has smart order routing that splits your orders across multiple liquidity sources, and it allows you to make limit orders on-chain so you can set and forget your DeFi trades. Head over to matcha.xyz/Defiant and connect your wallet to start trading. The goal for the Cosmos Hub is for it to provide tooling for chains to launch and be optimized. It's a chain that's in service of other chains. So what's the role of the Atom token within this ecosystem? And where does Ethan see Cosmos in the long term?
Yeah, so Atom's the staking token for the Cosmos Hub, and so obviously has a role in all of this in sort of securing that sort of main conservative chain that's providing all of these services. Atom is also, able to be used as sort of a fee token sort of throughout the Cosmos ecosystem. I think other chains are starting to look at allowing people to pay fees in Atom, and Atom sort of being positioned as like prime collateral within the ecosystem, because Cosmos has really, there's good integrations with Atom and exchanges and other service providers, and it's sort of been around for a long time, and so there's sort of more, I guess trust in it. And with this sort of Cosmos Hub 2.0 vision, it will unlock all kinds of new features for and demand for Atom and things you can do with it. So for instance, liquid staking is coming, which will allow you to sort of stake atoms but still use them, and they'll still be sort of transferable, and will sort of open up more doors. Things like this. So it's a staking token like other staking tokens. It's used for fees on the Cosmos Hub. It can be used for fees on other chains, and sort of building the sort of monetary ecosystem around it will continue with sort of Cosmos Hub 2.0. And I know that there's a lot of talk about the sort of tokenomics of Atom, and it's very inflationary and all this kind of things. Like all of that is up for change. I mean, the current parameters are just sort of what was there at the beginning to kind of bootstrap the thing. But I could certainly see a world where the tokenomics are radically changed, where something like EIP 1559 is sort of introduced, so atoms start being burned as fees, or where the supply becomes capped at some point, and sort of or more goes into the community pool. Like I said, there's sort of the constitution of a Cosmos Hub team is still a new thing, and so it's still kind of just starting to grow and really start to focus. And so it's kind of amazing what we've been able to achieve even without that team, just through this sort of more diverse kind of folks working on the core products, and now, or the core public goods, and now that these sort of more Cosmos Hub focused team is kind of coming together, even in the still kind of a decentralized fashion. Cosmos is known for being, more entities than anyone can keep track of, but those entities are all, a number of them are sort of really focusing on building up the Cosmos Hub, and sort of use cases for Atom, and the tokenomics of Atom are all sort of flowing out of that. So I expect we'll see a lot of sort of updates and changes to the tokenomics over the next 2 years to really sort of stabilize things and make it kind of a really secure place to custody assets and sort of launch into the rest of the ecosystem from.
Super interesting. And a quick aside, this team working on Cosmos Hub, is that Informal Systems?
It's a bunch of companies, but Informal Systems is one, Interchain is one, the Peggy JV team, the Strangelove team. There's a bunch of companies working on it. So Cosmos is a sort of pretty diverse group of organizations, and quite decentralized. Yeah.
And who would, or how would this decision to change tokenomics be made? Like, what's governance like?
Yeah, so on-chain governance has been a key part of the Cosmos stack pretty much from the beginning. So, when we first shipped, there was a governance, on-chain governance protocol. It's relatively simple. It just, you put up a proposal, there's a deposit required, and the deposit can be crowdfunded. But once the threshold is hit, then the proposal becomes active, and then validators and delegators can vote. So validators can vote, and they'll vote with the weight of all the stake delegated to them. But then individual delegators, if they want, they can override the vote of their validator and sort of vote independently. And then there's 4 voting options: yes, no with veto, and abstain. And a quorum of stake is required for the vote to be sort of valid. So I think it's right now 40% of the stake has to actually show up and vote. And then, if more than 50% of that votes yes, it passes. And if more than a third votes no with veto, then the thing, then it fails. And so that's sort of built in there because there's, it's a little bit subtle, but it's basically because it's always possible because of the way the consensus works, if you control more than a third of the voting power, you can always stop votes from going through, you can censor transactions and so on. And so, we sort of recognize that kind of directly in the voting system, in the governance system, to say, okay, if you're really against something, a third of the voting power, because they kind of have this power anyway to censor, but they would have to kind of coordinate and collude and all that. We sort of made it explicit for them to be able to vote no with veto, and then there's abstain if you want to abstain. So governance has been pretty active on the hub and on other chains. I mean, the stuff happening on Juno obviously had like 95% turnout or something. It was pretty nuts. It was really crazy to see how many people are out voting. So that's pretty exciting. And yeah, so for any big tokenomic change, it would require passing a governance proposal. There are things that are just parameters. So you can make a proposal that will just change a parameter or a few parameters. And then if governance approves it, then the parameter changes. And that's happened a bunch of times. But any sort of larger change requires a vote to actually do an upgrade. And then, developers would work on the software. They'd make a proposal to upgrade to it. And then if that would pass, then there would be, an upgrade at some point in the future. Yeah.
Very cool. So in launching and developing like all these different pieces for the Cosmos ecosystem, I mean, it seems like, you know, it's been a lot. Like it's a pretty kind of complex system, like very technical, a lot of just like new infrastructure. And so like, what are some of the maybe you know, just like lessons from shipping all this stuff, like things you wish you could have done differently.
Yeah.
I don't know, and just like the challenges going forward as well.
Yeah. There have been some unique organizational challenges in Cosmos, and that's, you know, part of what led to there being so many organizations now and us being so decentralized. One thing I would love to have done sooner is institute a workers cooperative model for us to work together under. So Informal Systems, which is the company I'm running now, is a workers cooperative, which means every employee, after 9 months, they get a membership. 9 months is the gestation period for a human. So after 9 months, they become a full member of the cooperative, and then that entitles them to a vote on any sort of major decisions. And so, you know, I would have loved to have that kind of model right from the beginning, and maybe we would all still be one big, you know, workers cooperative organization. But possibly in the future, we'll sort of reconstitute something like that. So I'm a huge fan of cooperatives, and I think it's kind of tragic that there aren't more of them, especially workers cooperatives, and especially in the blockchain space. And you know, I think that's something I'd really like to see changed and different. As far as, I don't know, maybe on the technology front, we were I think we were really naive about how complex the system was, and so there's this joke that we were like 2 months away from launch for like 16 months, and that finally we got to the point where we were only 6 weeks away from launch, and that's how we knew, you know, it was really going to be launch time. So, you know, we probably could have done a better job of like speccing things out ahead of time and really understanding the scope of the and complexity of the system and sort of planning better for that. But those are all the sort of classic challenges as, you know, technology software startups have. So, yeah.
Great. And then just going forward, like what are some of the big milestones that you're working, you know, that Cosmos ecosystem is working towards this year? I know you mentioned shared security with Cosmos Hub. Like what are some of the other kind of big ones?
Yeah, so that's a really big one, because that'll really open up the door to more kinds of applications coming to Cosmos and sort of using the Cosmos Hub and therefore the Atom sort of securing more and more value. I think the other is Interchain accounts, which should launch on the Cosmos Hub very shortly with the next upgrade, but you know, we'll need other chains to upgrade to actually use it. So just like more. I mean, we've hit these incredible milestones with IBC. I think we're doing something like 13 million IBC transfers a month in total across all the IBC chains, which is just nuts. You can see this all on mapazones.com. I encourage people to go to that site because it's really, you know, something amazing to witness and to actually start using it. But so actually seeing more uses of IBC, more kinds of applications using IBC, I think will be really big milestones. So getting Interchain accounts to work and getting people to actually start building applications that are sort of Interchain accounts native will open up all kinds of amazing possibilities. Like for instance, we were just talking about governance. You'll be able to have one chain vote to do something on another blockchain. So like governance on one chain will actually be able to control an account on another blockchain using Interchain accounts, which just opens so many possibilities for, you know, cooperation across blockchains. And so actually seeing those things start to happen, I think will be really exciting, and seeing chains start to use Interchain security. Those are sort of the two huge milestones for us. Yeah.
Very cool. Okay, and then starting to wrap up, Cosmos in kind of the future, I don't know, way out, which I don't know, in blockchain and crypto world, maybe it's like 2 years from now, or like say 5 years from now.
Let's say 5. Yeah.
Yeah, like where does Cosmos fit? Like just like thinking about what you mentioned before, Cosmos in relation to Ethereum, to Bitcoin, to like all the other layer one chains. Like, do you see Cosmos as competing with Ethereum and taking over kind of market share from it, or complementing it? And yeah, like how does the landscape look?
Yeah, I think it's largely complementary. I mean, Ethereum, you know, is this sort of world computer vision and is trying to build some very specific global censorship resistant compute protocol. And I think there are going to be limits to its scalability and stuff. And the team is kind of already experiencing that with the sort of years of research and struggle to sort of get ETH 2.0 out. With Cosmos, or at least what I'm most interested in, I am trying to deeply study the structure of the monetary system and the banking system and the payment system, and how sort of corrupt and broken it is, and how essential it is to the problems of sustainability and sort of resilience, and to some extent staving off certain kinds of civil war. And so it's really important to me that we address those kind of core infrastructural problems, and that we do it right, which means like attending to the actual political economics of the situation. And so I sort of, I express my philosophy as monetary localism. I believe that money should be a much more locally governed phenomenon, and that communities, whether it's cities or other kinds of local jurisdictions, should have more sovereignty over their monetary system and their ability to sort of engage with it. And so those are the kinds of things that I'm hoping to be working on over the next 5 years. And whether that means cities issuing their own local currencies per se, or just means alternatives to kind of bank loans and payment system for small businesses to be able to manage shocks and sort of clear payments with each other more readily, I think is really important, because the banking system is really ill, and there are all kinds of indications of that. 2008 happened. We've never really recovered from that. Like, that was a monetary crisis that the extent of which I don't think has been well understood, and there hasn't really been a recovery in any sense. And sort of we're still suffering from this like deep deflationary monetary structure. And that sounds crazy because consumer prices are up and all this stuff, but those are for other reasons. I think what's happening though, it seems, and especially over the last 15 years, there's been like a complete collapse of small businesses and small business lending, and it's been everything is focused on like the biggest and most let's say secure companies that are able to get loans at very low interest rates and so on, and this has all been at the expense of the sort of heart and soul of the economy, which are smaller businesses and smaller entities being able to operate. So, I'm really hoping that over the next 5 years, we're able to, with the Cosmos technology, make an impact for real world networks of trade and small businesses that makes them more resilient, better able to tolerate shocks, and able to clear more economic activity with less, let's say, exchange media and less dependence on bank loans and things like that. So. I wouldn't say I'm trying to quite, destroy all the banks yet or something like that. I mean, I'm hoping there's a way we can all kind of work together, but they're not performing the function they're supposed to perform, and the economic system is really ill because of it. And so that's really important to me to address. Yeah.
Very cool. Okay, so obviously, you said you're sovereignty maximalist. So I guess like developers and like founders will build whatever within the Cosmos ecosystem, but your hope is that its main impact will be in the financial system, just like providing an alternative to traditional finance and to what kind of the function that banks have been having. Hopefully, with blockchain technology, there can be just a better way of doing things and financing, smaller communities and smaller businesses. Is that kind of your hope?
Sort of. I mean, I wouldn't frame it as just the financial system. I mean, one way to think about finance and payments is it's just the inverse of the supply chain, or the reverse of the supply chain. And so for me, really, it's about sustainability of the species. And I think that means smaller scale supply chains, more localism, more self-sufficiency in communities. And so it's really about supporting like social and ecological regeneration, let's say. And one way I think that's really important to do that, because if we don't do it, it's really hard to make progress on other things, is addressing these like core monetary systemic issues, right? And so it's not even so much about finance as it is about the sort of monetary structure as a way to address that. And so that's one application, but there are others. Obviously, we need to clean up the planet and, rejuvenate and regenerate all kinds of ecologies. And there are applications of Cosmos to that, which I think are really exciting. So there's the Regen Network that's doing that. There's IXO, which is doing these social impact bonds. So there are, a bunch of Cosmos-based projects that are trying to actually, clean up this mess we've made over the last, let's say, 200 years or so. And so those are things I'm really excited about as well, and would love to see more of. And of course, all the like DeFi, degen stuff is a lot of fun, and we're learning a lot, and there's a lot of experimentation happening, and sort of almost rediscovering from first principles, governance and politics and all these kind of interesting things, which, maybe that will train up a bunch of people to become politicians and to help, restructure our actual organization or actual institutions. So I don't know. But I'm hoping that these technologies actually start to have real world impact and help communities become more sustainable and self-sufficient and so on. Yeah.
Very cool. Okay, and then one final question, Ethan, is how are you defiant?
In many ways, I guess. I reject almost all standard classifications. I don't like being put in boxes, so you can't label me other than the terms I came up with because, I don't want you to have the wrong connotations. I defy the sort of standard understandings of, capitalism and what we're trying to do and standard organizational structures. And I'm sort of constantly, maybe to a fault, putting my values first. This company, Informal Systems, we built is structured as a workers' cooperative. And we defied traditional organizational structures to really make something different. And sort of our goal in the long term with that company is to transform what we feel are three, really ill but really important institutions of society: software, how we build and deploy it; money, how we issue and distribute it; and organizations, how we own and govern them. And so we are defying all the current ways we do things in those institutions, and hopefully remaking them for the better.
Awesome. I love that answer. Cool. One random question.
Sure.
I was asking on Twitter, what people wanted to know. Matt Huang from Paradigm said something about chickens. Is that something? What's that about?
Yeah, I used to have chickens. So I for a while I lived in a small town outside Toronto. I had have a house there, and we had chickens. We had like 25 chickens in the backyard. So every morning I'd go out and play with my chickens. Chickens are an absolute delight to have. So the chickens are gone because we've moved out of that house. So, they were largely in our tummies at one point. We make chicken soup and stuff out of them. But we had eggs galore for a while.
Oh my God.
Yeah, we had so many eggs we didn't even know what to do with them. So if you can have chickens, I highly recommend them. I hope to have chickens again soon. But I've been threatening to quit computer science and become a farmer for my whole career.
That would be a great loss
threat
to
still
the industry,
stands. So yeah, don't piss me off too much or I'm out of here. No.
That's actually also a dream of mine, to have a farm with lots of animals. I'm a huge animal lover. I've always wanted to have a donkey and deer and foxes and bunnies and I don't know, just a big.
I don't know if foxes and bunnies go well together, but
that's true.
That sounds
have
fun.
Them separate, but they're just both cute on their own. Maybe bunnies inside the house and foxes outside.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Okay, so a farmer and a rapper. Those are our two side hobbies of Ethan Buchman that I didn't expect kind of going into this research. So I won't put you on the spot and have you rap, but I'll definitely ask all listeners to go and check out Ethan's rapping skills. Very undervalued, or I guess it should be better known because they're actually genuinely really good. Really good
appreciate
skills.
That. I'm still planning on making a proposal to the Cosmos Hub for some funds so I can produce an album. So I've got some more tracks I need to write, and there's a few good ones in there already. So yeah.
Amazing. All right, Ethan. Well, this has been a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks a lot for having me. It was a lot of fun. Take care.